Much like the rest of the world, I have a new hyperfixation, and it's Kpop Demon Hunters. I've watched it 3 times in the last couple weeks, and I love everything about it, from the animation to the music to the storytelling. So like any normal makeup obsessed person, I built a custom palette inspired by the movie, and I am so excited to share it with you. Also, fair warning, this video is going to be very spoiler heavy for the movie, so if you haven't already watched it, this is your spoiler warning. And in case you're new here, my name is Nupur and I love indie makeup and all things color and sparkle, and here is a little lore drop for you. I used to be a massive K-pop fan back in high school, so I might be aging myself here, but this was the 2008 to 2012 era, and I feel like the K-pop world was very different back then because we just didn't have social media the way it is today. It was pretty much just YouTube, where we are right now, and that is where I accessed all of my K-pop stuff. So full disclosure, I'm not super familiar with the K-pop world today beyond what I see on TikTok and what I hear from my friends, but watching this movie was still incredibly nostalgic for me, especially because I feel like it includes references to Sailor Moon and anime and other things that I grew up on, so I'm just really excited that a movie like this exists. So here's a little preview of the palette, and I'm gonna be doing some overhead footage of this where I will talk through the palette in depth, like how I designed it with some swatches and all of that good stuff. And then once I do that, I'll be doing a look with the palette, and I think my look is going to be inspired by one of the looks that the girls wore in the movie. So here's the BYOP, and before we get into it, I just want to make a quick note that I'm still very unfamiliar with filming like top down like this, and I'm unsure how the quality of this, both visually and audio, is going to turn out. So I just want to note that things may not be super professional, but as long as you're okay with that, let's get into the palette. So if you've watched the movie, you will know that the girls wear many different makeup looks throughout the movie, and they are all super beautiful. But I want to say right off the bat, this palette is not based on those looks. It is more so based on like the overall color palette of the movie, as well as like specific scenes or moments that I was like very taken by, and when I came away from the movie, this is how I visualize it. I did reference a lot of stills from the movie, posters, concept art, that sort of thing, so that also influenced how I built this palette. But at the same time, I wanted a palette that could like functionally work as a cohesive eyeshadow palette. Like I wanted it to reflect the color palette of the movie, but also work in an eyeshadow sense, because for me, like I need my eyeshadow palette to have some light tones, some mid tones, some deepening up shades, so as well as like a good assortment of shimmer. So I kept all of those things in mind while designing this palette. So I'm going to talk you through why I chose a bunch of these shades, and I may or may not name them while going through this. Like some of them I do know off the top of my head what they are, but for the ones that I don't know, I will be sharing photos at the end, like both swatches as well as photos of this palette fully labeled. So if you're interested in any specific shade, you can reference that. Okay, move the palette off to the side just so I can swatch on this arm over here. And the first shades that I knew for sure I wanted to include in the palette were colors to represent each of the 3 girls. And of course, I had to start with Rumi, and I knew I wanted to include purple as her color since her hair is purple. And I went through a bunch of stills and images and things from the movie, and I noticed that her hair is more on the cool tone side and slightly desaturated, but it also reflects a bunch of different colors in the movie depending on the environment that she's in and what the lighting is in and stuff like that. But I felt at a base level, the 3 shades that I wanted to represent her hair were this one over here, this shimmer, and this pastel purple over here. Despite the fact that I have so many purples in my collection, I felt like I didn't have anything exactly for her hair, so that's why I kind of went with 3 options. And just because I feel like there is a lot of purple in the movie, and Rumi is kind of like the main character within the 3 girls, so I felt like I wanted to go heavy on the purple. And I just felt like between these 3 shades, we kind of had like a good amount of what would represent her hair. Because I feel like this one is slightly like desaturated and very pastel, but not as vibrant as these 2. And like altogether, I don't know, it just made sense in my head. Next, I decided to go with some pinks for Mira, of course, because she has that beautiful pink hair. And once again, I looked at a bunch of photos and stills, and I felt like her hair, like from memory, I thought it was more vibrant, but then in reality, it felt like it wasn't like the most hot pink. And so I felt like this matte over here was the best representation for her hair. But at the same time, like Rumi's hair, hers also reflected lighting and things in the environment. And I felt like there was a lot of pink present throughout the movie and a lot of like hot pink, which is why I wanted to include this shimmer over here. And also because I felt like this shimmer was the best representation for Quima. Quima is shown to be this flame demon, and he has this like hot pink hue to him, but at the same time he is a fire, so I felt like this shimmer with its like vibrant pink shift, but then it goes to like a more fiery orange and even like a yellow green at a super sharp angle. I just felt like this would be really good for it. This is Terra Moon's Flame Star, or Flare Star, I think, and then this is Terra Moon's Ultraviolet, and they are just so, so beautiful. Now, for our girl Zoey, I didn't immediately know what I wanted to choose to represent her because she does not have super vibrant hair like the other girls. But what I noticed was throughout the movie, her color seems to be like an aqua or teal. Like the very first time we see the girls in the plane before they drop down into the arena, she's wearing this teal aqua top. So I felt like these two shades over here would be best to represent her. I chose both a matte as well as the shimmer because as you can see, the matte is very, very like pigmented and vibrant, and this shimmer is super gorgeous and vibrant too, but it's got quite a sheer base, and I feel like a lot of special indie shimmers have sheer bases, so I just wanted to use at least one matte and one shimmer for each of the girls to really get that vibrancy and punchiness that I wanted. Also, this shimmer, you can see it's more of a green straight on. It goes to a teal at this angle. I don't know how well you can see in this lighting. Yeah, if I bring it over here, you can see a bit better. And then at a super sharp angle, it's more of a blue. And I just felt like all of these shades together just really represent the girls so, so well. So along with choosing colors to represent the three girls, I wanted to choose more shades to represent like all three of them as a whole, as well as just like things that we saw throughout the movie that are kind of attached to all three of them, if that makes sense. And let me just explain by telling you or showing you. So the first shade that I thought of was I wanted some golds in the palette, obviously, to represent their song Golden and their outfits. And this is pretty much just like a straight gold. This is the shade Golden Girl from Shine by Esty, and you can see it's just like a beautiful, gorgeous gold. But I also wanted to choose this single shadow, or no, this isn't a single shadow. This is from the Fantasy Cosmetica Monk palette. I can't remember the exact shade name, but you can hopefully see it's like a marbled pan, and this eyeshadow really reminded me of some of their outfits that they wore to promote the Golden song. It just like, I felt like it was so perfect for that. So I really wanted to include this shade. I think I might actually swatch these side by side just to like save room on my arm because I have to fit a lot more shades and I have quite a small arm. And this shade isn't very shifty. It's pretty much just a straight gold, but this one goes from this like orange to a green. So I'm going to put that on this side so you can really see it. I also knew that I really wanted to include this matte over here because I just felt like the palette was very like pink, purple, blue heavy, aside from this row up top, which has a couple of neutral shades too. And I just wanted a matte to go with the more golden shades. And I felt like this one up here, we see this shade actually on all three of the girls, again, in the plane when they drop down into the arena at the beginning of the movie. All three of them are wearing this shade somewhere in their outfits. And I love that that's like just like a little thread between the three girls, so I knew I wanted to include this matte. And also I just felt like it was a nice little pop of contrast against all of these other tones, but still went with things overall. I also felt like this matte was the closest I could get to representing Derpy Tiger. I feel like his eyes are that beautiful glowing yellow, and yes, this matte has like the tiniest touch of orange in it, but I felt like it was close enough to represent him. The last two shimmers up here, I also chose to kind of represent items slash things in the world of Kpop Demon Hunters. So I really wanted to use Bella Beauté Bar Skin of a Killer to kind of mimic the otherworldly glow from the weapons that the girls wield. I feel like they glow this intense, like almost white with like a tinge of blue in it. So that's why I included this shade down here, which is from the Bella Beauté Bar Realm of Fairies palette. I can't remember the exact shade name, but again, I will share all the shades later. It might be Will of the Wisp, actually. But I felt like Skin of a Killer was the perfect iridescent white shade to mimic the glow. I didn't want to use a white matte because I felt like the blades were really like glowing and I didn't feel like a matte would encompass that. And same with like the blue tint to their blades. I didn't feel like a pastel blue would really do it, even though I do have a pastel blue in the palette, but I included that more for just like overall color palette reasons and to round out the palette itself. But I feel like these two together really reflect the glow of their weapons. And this shade actually does shift to more of a purple at an angle, but I feel like that does go overall with the palette since there is so much purple in the movie and in this palette as well. Then this shimmer up here is just a pure hollow shimmer. It's from the Bella Beauté Bar Unoriginal Nudes palette, and I knew I wanted to put a pure hollow in here because when the girls are powering up at the end, when the fans' souls are kind of like feeding into them and powering up the Hunmoon itself, I feel like originally they were trying to seal it and make it gold, but the new one, I feel like it was rainbow. I don't have like a confirmation that that's what it is for sure, but just like visually and after some light Googling, I feel like that's what it is. And I just feel like, yeah, when the girls get powered up at the end, they have these like rainbow swirls going around them. And so I really wanted to include a pure hollow shade. So these are all the shades that I knew for sure that I wanted to include in the palette to represent the girls and various things throughout the movie. But to me, this is not a complete palette. Like I need to add other things to make a complete color story. And also this is very shimmer heavy, so I knew I wanted to include more mattes. So I went back and I looked at a bunch of like stills and the movie posters and things like that. And these are all very light tones, so I knew I wanted to add some depth, and I noticed in a bunch of the stills that I found, a lot of the backgrounds had a lot of this like rich depth to them. They had burgundy, they had deep purple, they had navy. So those were shades that I knew I wanted to include in the palette. And then I wanted to add a couple more like pastel tones because I felt like if the background was very deep and dark, the foreground and the girls was very like pastel and light. And so that's how I arrived at all these other shades in the palette. Let me swatch those out and I'll be right back. So here are the rest of the shades swatched out, and I feel like these were all colors that I felt rounded out the palette and were pulled directly from a lot of the stills that I watched. The one exception is this shimmer down here, which is Diveroon's Stray Cat. Very, very famous single shadow at this point in the indie world. And it's over here, it's the shimmer over here. It has quite a vibrant purple base, and on me that base turns a bit more smoky, I would say, but I also have no problem layering shimmers over mattes to boost the base vibrancy. And I love the shifts in here. I felt like I did see some like peachy aspects throughout the film, and I wanted to include something to represent that and kind of bridge the gap between the more like pink warm side of the palette with the more purple cool tone side of the palette. So here's the entire palette swatched out. I'm very happy with how this turned out to kind of represent the movie overall. And I want to say the one thing that I waffled on in terms of like whether to include it is a black matte eyeshadow, because if you know me, you know that I am a hater of black eyeshadows in palettes because I just don't really use them, and if I really want one, then I can pull it in. But I did feel like a black matte objectively made sense for this palette, for this movie, because black is present within the movie. Like the girls wear those all black, I think like leather fits when they're fighting the demons at one point. And like, I feel like I didn't choose anything to represent the Saja boys really, which don't get me wrong, I love the Saja boys. They're so fun. But to me, this movie overall is like, to me, it's a movie about sisterhood and friendship and those type of things. And it's about the girls first and foremost. And I just felt like at the end of the day, this is my palette. And if I don't want to include a black matte eyeshadow, then I won't. First, I just wanted to show you the rough swatches that I did in motion so that you can see all of the shifts and textures and stuff, because I just feel like this lighting really shows that off well. But I also have my usual standard photo swatches, which I feel like are just like neater and represent the color story overall a bit better. And lastly, I have the labeled palette photo that you can pause and screenshot if you want to reference it. Okay, my look is going to be inspired by the pinkish look that Zoey wears in the beginning of the movie during How It's Done, but with a couple of caveats for a few reasons actually. The first one being that obviously I am working within my palette, which may not have the exact colors and textures that she has in the look. So I'm going to be trying to do the best with what I have. But the second reason that I can think of is that my eye shape is very different from hers. I have very round eyes and they're very deep set, so my anatomy is just different from hers, and I'm going to be adapting the look to suit me. Also, I hope this goes without saying, but this is an animated look, and I think that the animators did a fantastic job, but it's not modeled on a real person, so I'm going to be adapting it to be more real as well. I'm gonna start by dipping into this pastel pink matte over here. I'm gonna first run that over here in the inner portion of my crease and a little higher up, but no, actually I'm gonna bring it down as well. And I usually do this eye off camera before I do my right eye, just so you can see what I'm working towards with each step, of course. I'm also taking quite a bit of that matte on a little pencil brush and packing that over here on the inner portion of my lower lash line. I feel like it's quite bright here in her look, and I don't usually go this light, like right here on the lower lash line. I usually keep it isolated to this area, but I am trying to follow the look a little bit. Next, I'm going to take this mid-tone pink, but just a small amount. And I'm going to take this and tuck it right here in the deepest part of my crease on the outer half first. Get the bulk of the pigment on over here, and then start slowly and softly blending it out. I don't want to take it too far in, and I also don't want to take it too far up. I pretty much just want to give the next deeper burgundy shade that I'm going to use something to blend into, because I feel like most of the outer part of her lid is that deep burgundy, but I don't want it to get out of hand, so I just want to lay down something for it to blend into. Also taking that pink on the same pencil brush and really packing it on the outer half of my lower lash line here, because I feel like she has this like really vibrant pink over here. And again, I like to do more depth on my lower lash line, but I'm trying to follow this look. And something I want to mention about this movie is I just love, I'm picking up some more, I love that the animators designed several looks for the girls. Like they're wearing multiple looks throughout the movie, but then they also show them like without makeup, you know, a few times. And I feel like it really does look like they don't have makeup on, because I can see like dark circles and things like that, and I just think that's so cool. Now I'm gonna dip into this burgundy over here. This is actually one of my favorite burgundies in my entire collection. It's from Glaminatrix. It's from their Into the Night palette, and I just feel like the tone of the shade is so beautiful, and I also love how deep it goes. I'm gonna start by really packing it on over here first. In the look that Zoey's wearing, this burgundy shade is actually over like most of like the outer 2/3 of her lid, and then it kind of like tapers off into nothing over here. But I feel like, I don't know, I needed to add those lighter pinks to have this blend into. I'm gonna leave this alone for now, and I picked up a little bit more, and I'm gonna start putting it over here on the outer corner, and I'm gonna slowly, very slowly start blending this out. And it may not look like it to you, but I'm gonna try to like bring it out more in like not quite a wing shape, even though hers is in a wing shape. But I'll be honest with you, like on my eye shape, I don't mind doing winged liner, but when it comes to like winged out eyeshadow itself, I feel like it just looks odd on my eye shape because my eyes are so round. So I am still going to round the edges just a little bit, but I'm going to bring it more in like this direction than I usually do. Tapped in just a tiny amount, and I'm going to actually first apply that on the lid again because I felt like it was a little lighter over here, and then start blending it. But I really don't want to take it too far up because on her the burgundy ends like I feel like where like I guess her lid kind of ends, and so I don't want this to go past my crease because like when I look forward like this, I don't want it to go all the way up here. I'm also slowly feathering the burgundy off as I get closer to the inner third of my lid, but I am going at a diagonal angle like this to kind of emphasize that like winged out shape. I dip back into that medium pink shade, and I'm going to re-intensify it over here so that there's no like gaps in between the mattes. It is taking everything in me to not bring this smoky shade down over here. Like, I usually like to bring my deepening up shade a little bit out here just for like some definition and to give me more of that like doe-eyed look, because my eyes are so round, but I have to remind myself that that's not what I'm going for here. So after studying this photo, it looks like she actually does have a little bit of depth on the lower lash line, but it comes from her eyeliner, from her winged liner. So I think I actually am going to do some winged eyeliner off camera because I'm too nervous to do that on camera, and be right back. Here's the eyeliner done, and I'm really glad that I decided to add it because I feel like the look was missing some definition that the eyeliner definitely added. And honestly, her eyeliner doesn't look pretty, like, it doesn't look really sharp. It looks like it's almost a part of the eyeshadow. It like blends into the eyeshadow. So I'm glad that I used eyeshadow, like a black eyeshadow for it, as opposed to like a liquid liner that would make things very bold, very sharp. Now, before I finish off the inner portion of the lid, I'm gonna switch gears and do like the inner corner, inner swoop, and I'm gonna pick up this shimmer over here for that. This is actually one of the reasons that I was particularly excited to do Zoey's look, because I always do an inner swoop shimmer, and when I saw that she had like this twinkle right here, I was like, oh my god, I need to do that look. But her inner swoop shimmer is almost a little like disconnected. Like, she has what I'm doing right now, like she has this placement here, but it looks like there's like a gap in between this and the proper inner corner, which I'm not gonna do like a full gap, but I am concentrating the shimmer here, and then whatever's left on the brush, that is what I will use to connect the two. So there's just like less there. So now for the remaining portion of my lid, this inner third over here that is mostly bare aside from like a tiny amount of the burgundy matte that I dragged inwards. It was hard to tell what Zoey had going on in the movie. It looked like it was almost a peachy sparkle from some angles, and I would love to reach into a K-Beauty shimmer for that. I feel like that would be perfect, but I really want to limit myself to using just this palette, and I think I'm going to use the center portion of this iridescent over here because it has no base, first of all, because it's an iridescent, so it won't interfere too much with the pink, and also you can see it has a bit of that peachy reflect. I'm going to just basically pack that over here first, and then start feathering it out as I meet the burgundy matte. And actually, to make that orange shimmer blend better with the burgundy, I'm also going to use this pink shimmer. I'm gonna work that right between the two to blend them together better, and also drag it a bit over the burgundy because I'm just like not used to having this much matte on my lid and not taking the shimmer all the way. So I'm just gonna bring it outwards a touch more, but like not super opaquely. It's going to be very dispersed. Okay, I think that's it for the eyeshadow. I'm going to do my mascara off camera and add a couple of gems, and I'll be right back. Here's the final look, and I don't know if you can tell, but I really love how it turned out, despite, or like maybe because of the fact that I used several techniques that I don't normally use. So the first one is that I talked about this already, but I usually take the shimmer all across my lid, and today I only have it till about like here, and I actually really love the way that it looks because I feel like having a very matte and smoky outer half of the lid helps the shimmers pop even more, and it kind of like draws attention to those glitters, and I really love how it looks. The second thing is the gems, because I don't usually wear gems and I don't really know why. I should definitely be using them more because I love the little additional twinkle they add to the eye, and again, I feel like having this area be matte and smoky really helps the gems pop even more. And my placement's a little iffy, it's not perfect, but I still love how it looks. And then the last thing is the thing that's like least different from the way that I usually do my makeup, and it's that I brought the eyeshadow further out than I usually do to help elongate my eyes, and I feel like usually I cut it off about like here to help keep the eyes a bit more rounded, and I love the way this looks, and I think I'm going to experiment with bringing my eyeshadow further out now. And of course, I had to give you some classic sparkle cam footage, even though I don't have that much sparkle on my lids right now. What I do have is so pretty, and I love this look so much. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I always really appreciate it. And if you did make it to the end, I would love to know in the comments what you thought about the movie overall. Let's chat about it. I am just like hungry to discuss this movie with other like-minded individuals, so let me know down in the comments what you thought about it. Also, let me know what you thought about the format of this video, because I feel like I haven't done a custom palette BYOP style video before, and I'm thinking of incorporating them more into my content here and there, so I'm curious what you guys thought of it. Lastly, I want to mention that I did get everyone's questions for the Q&A Get Ready With Me that I want to do, and that should be the very next video, but I wanted to do this first just because it's a bit more like topical and I wanted to get it out sooner, and I felt like the Q&A could wait a bit. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!